Now we're going to talk about the 20th century. In every other era, we've been able to nail down certain characteristics that define the style of that era. Then we hit the 20th century. There is a literal explosion of musical styles in that century, making generalizations difficult. Styles as different as rock, jazz, and musical theater line up alongside wildly diverse, more serious styles like expressionism and impressionism and neoclassicism. Perhaps the only common word here is experimentation. Attributes are the rhythm is experimented with, including shifting meters. And by shifting meters, I mean there will be like 1 or 2 bars of 2/4 that would then go to 6/8, then would then go to 3/8, then would go to 5/8. And the effect of that is that there is a punching, irregular rhythm that is unsettling. Polymeters, where some of the instruments will be playing in 1 meter, like 3/4, and then other instruments would be playing in another meter, like 4/4, and it sounds disjunct. New metric schemes, there could be a ritardando, which means to get gradually slower, that starts at the beginning of the piece and goes all the way to the end. Unconventional meters, like 5 or 7 beats to the measure. Melody experiments include very wide-ranging and often angular melodies, polyphony that intentionally doesn't blend, a type of composition called serial or tone row that is completely free of any feeling of a home base, any scale influence at all. Harmony, an intentional clash of sounds called dissonance to create tension. They used microtones, which are, as I told you on the piano, the shortest possible distance is a half step. Well, they discovered all these little steps in between using electronic instruments and stringed instruments, and then created teeny tiny tone clusters that sounded like insects buzzing. Polytonality, where there's more than one tonality happening in the orchestra at the same time. And atonality, where you get absolutely no feel of having a tonal base at all. Tone color, one of the most important elements of 20th century music. Just an avid exploration of what can create a different sound. And so there were noise-like and percussive sounds often used. They can use even things like typewriters or sirens or toilets, or they used electronics to create a different kind of sound that had ever been made before. Uncommon playing techniques, like instead of violinists bowing or plucking, they actually bang the strings. They even do that on the piano, where they reach in, they open up the grand piano and bang on the strings. We're going to hear a little bit of several of these experiments as we move through this era. We'll start off talking about Impressionism. As we transition from the 19th to the 20th century, a French composer named Claude Debussy spearheaded a musical style that completely upended the emotionalism of the Romantic era in favor of a delicate, elegant, and fragile type of composition known as Impressionism. This movement stems from earlier Impressionistic movements in art and literature. Impressionistic painters such as Monet and Renoir were concerned primarily with the effects of light, color, and atmosphere, with impermanence, change, and fluidity. Their paintings were collections of tiny colored patches, which became recognizable forms and shimmering patterns from a distance. Impressionist painters were primarily concerned with light and water, especially with the effect of light on water at different times of the day. At the same time, symbolist poets such as Mallarmé and Verlaine emphasized fluidity, suggestion, and the musical effects of rather than the content of words rather than the content of the verse itself. Qualities of impressionistic music are the tone colors. Instruments are unusually combined and explored for new effects to create a sensuous sound. The harmony is more varied and colorful than all that preceded it, experimenting with expanded 13th chords. You may remember at the beginning of this class I played pentatonic and whole tone scales for you, and they used these as well as church modes in this era. And the rhythm was again vague and irregular because they wanted that watery quality. Debussy's most famous impressionistic work is Clair de Lune, or Moonlight. Remember that Impressionists are fascinated with the impression of light on water, and you will hear the rippling of water and the calmness of moonlight in this beautiful work. Here is Lang Lang, I really like him, again, playing this Impressionist classic. A sample of Debussy's music that's included in your ebook is Prelude to the Afternoon of Faun. Impressionism is dreamlike, lacking definition, and so is this plot, based on a poem by Stéphane Mallarmé. Debussy describes the poem. This poem evokes the dreams and erotic fantasies of a pagan forest creature who is half man and half goat. While playing a long solo on his flute, the intoxicated faun tries to remember whether he actually carried off two beautiful nymphs or only dreamed of doing so. Exhausted by that effort, he falls back to sleep in the sunshine. How is that for a plot? Was I dreaming? Did that happen? Oh well, I'm going to sleep now. As vague as this is, it is an excuse for subtle, dreamlike, and sensuous music with fluid rhythms. Much of more aggressive 20th century music finds its beginnings in a movement called Expressionism, which explored inner feelings rather than depicting outward appearances. They used deliberate distortions to shock their audience and communicate tension and anguish. Topics of these works were generally social protest, the poor, the oppressed, the victims of war. This style grew out of the same school of thought as Freud's studies of hysteria and the unconscious. The expressionist movement in art sought to express the same panic, the same depths of despair as the movement in music. This work by Edvard Munch is entitled The Scream. These works avoid the relaxing feel of settling into a key. Rather, they use serial composition. Serial composition was created by Arnold Schoenberg and two of his students, Alban Berg and Anton von Webern. He described it as a method of composing with 12 tones that are related only with one another, not to a single note or a tonic. The composer arranges the 12 pitches within an octave into what is called a tone row, or a series, or a set. The row can be transposed, inverted, used backwards or upside down, much like the subject in the fugue used to be, but the object is not to play one note any more frequently than any other, so that you avoid the restful spot of a tonal center. Schoenberg used a vocal technique called Sprechstimme, which is a spoken voice on pitch with precise rhythms. As abrasive as this music sounds, it has a function and a legacy. Expressionistic composers focus on the pain of human existence. Survivor from Warsaw deals with the psychological horror of surviving a concentration camp during the Holocaust. So yes, that will be harsh. Yet look at how this music has influenced the background music in today's TV and film thrillers. This style of music is very unsettling and creates tension, so definitely has a place in films that want to create terror. As shocking as it used to be, here we are listening to it almost daily. You have this selection in your ebook with a listening guide.